Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? We have a brand new episode of Buy or Bust for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the brand new Series 5 card Elixir that is releasing on Tuesday. I'm going to give you guys 3 decks, the pros and cons of this card's key synergies and counters, as well as the floor and the ceiling, what you can kind of expect with this card. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in case you guys did not know, Xorn is a 2-cost, 3-powered card that has the ability, after any 3 or 4-cost card is played here, move it to another location. You guys will see on screen here what this looks like in game. You're seeing this with Scream as well, because if you move your opponent's cards, they will lose power to Scream. I don't necessarily know if that is the right home for Xorn. I wish it would be interesting if Hydra Stomper also worked with Scream in that iteration as well. But it is a great little anti-move piece for that if you're using it for Scream, or just overall a move card to benefit you, which brings me to my synergies for this card as well. With Vulture being one of the main synergies, Vulture gets +6 power whenever it is moved, so you can play this onto your Xorn and get a +6 onto your Vulture immediately before either doing a potentially another move to get him to another +6 as well, or just to get him to a 3/9 there. Another good card is going to be Red Wing. Whenever Red Wing is moved, a card from your hand is played to where Red Wing was. So you would play, Red Wing onto Xorn, Red Wing would move to another location, and then one of your cards from your hand would go right onto Xorn itself, which is a very interesting combo piece there. And next, Hydra Stomper. Hydra Stomper gets +1 power whenever your cards are moved. So if you move Hydra Stomper, you're moving Hydra Stomper, so he gets +1, which could be very interesting into a combo kind of piece with this deck as well. Some sort of Xorn kind of Hydra Stomper deck, which we might be looking at later in the video. But of course, let's look at some of the key counters as well. Of course, first and foremost is going to be Red Guardian. This is just a flat text ability. It's not ongoing and it's not on reveal, so not Cosmo and Change, just Rogue are going to be able to affect your Xorn. But Red Guardian, of course, will target your Xorn, especially if it is the lowest powered card in your lane, because Red Guardian attacks the lowest powered card in your lane. Next is going to be Lady Deathstrike. Any card that has 3 or 4 or less power, I think 3 or less power, gets hit by Lady Deathstrike, so your Xorn actually just gets nuked by Lady Deathstrike there if they're running Lady Deathstrike. And then, of course, if your opponent is running Vulture, your opponent is going to get that +6 power on their Vulture as well, so that's something you really can't really get benefits there. You're kind of just helping them buff their cards, so just keep that in mind. But let's talk about the good and the bad for this card. So, the good for this card, it gives your 3 or 4 cost cards a free move. There you go. Boom. Next, there's not an on-reveal. It's not ongoing, so there's less counters for it, besides maybe the few ones we were just looking at about there. And, 2-cost cards are pretty easy to play out. I want to include also a counter card could potentially be Kingpin as well, or Scream, because, if you're moving your cards, your opponent doesn't have to move any of them, so they're moving, so you kind of just get cooked there. And of course, it affects your opponents as well. It can kind of offset maybe some of the combos. Maybe you're playing against Surfer and then trying to play onto the Captain Carter lane. So you play your Xorn onto the Captain Carter lane, so their 3-cost cards cannot stay on that lane. But the bad, of course, it's going to be a random move wherever they are moved from Xorn. So you kind of have to account for that, and your opponent could get favor there, moving to a better location, or you could lose favor moving to a location you don't want, potentially clogging yourself early because it is random. It's not guaranteed, unless, of course, you've filled your board. And there's also, not a large variety of 3 or 4 cost cards in the game that get a crazy amount of benefit from Xorn at the moment. We also do have Data Mine, Human Torch, First Steps, which is a 3/2 at the moment that gets +1 power at the end of turn. And if the board, if its lane is full, you double Human Torch's power. So it's kind of similar to the regular Human Torch, but also a little bit different. But of course, that's subject to change because it's Data Mine, and that's like the only other card I could see potentially getting some benefits from this. So it is kind of rough for just looking at it just cold. Like, these cards get benefits from being moved. There's not a lot that actually get that interaction. And then, of course, your opponents can benefit from the movement, like I was saying, too, whether it is you're playing against a Scream deck or they're running like a move deck with Vulture or some Hydra Stomper stuff as well. But going to the floor and the ceiling for Xorn as well. If you play this card out in curve and you have move cards that benefit from Xorn, or you can offset your opponent's combos, boom, you are hitting the ceiling for this card, and Xorn is doing his job well. The cons will be if you don't have any move cards that really get any benefit from Xorn, or your 3 or 4s don't really get any value at all from moving either, and your opponent gets benefits, then that's kind of going to be the floor, and you're not going to really get much value. It's just kind of a 2-3 stationary in the board. But let's look at some of these decks over here. So the first deck I have in mind here is Beefy Movers, which is kind of it's a move bounce shell here. I don't think it's going to be as like applicable as like the current move bounds. I think it's better with the dagger options. But you have actually Prodigy in this list to potentially even cop in your Human Torch or your Vulture, potentially even a Mover. To be able to get extra value with the Xorn itself, or the move with the Madam Web, Iron Fist, Ghost Spider, Aranya things. You have cards to be able to bounce Toxin and Beast. So you're using it that way. You also have Frigga to potentially get another Vulture. If your Vulture, moves from Xorn, and then you Frigga, your Frigga will get another 3/9 Vulture, which is very interesting to be able to mess around with and potentially have some Xorn value there as well. So that's something cool to note. Like, you can play onto your Xorn, and then you can, like, your Vulture onto Xorn, and then it moves, and then you Ghost Spider it back on a Xorn, and then your Vulture becomes a 3/15 in one turn. Pretty good. And then, of course, our next deck we're going to have over here is Moving Bits. It is very similar to the Chamo Nina deck that KM Best has posted about, Glazer's been talking about. But I have a little bit more of a twist to it. We actually have Nocturne in this list as well. So you get an immediate move for Nocturne. Maybe that's not what you want to change locations, but allows you to have 2 different location change. You also have Jeff for movement tech here. Hydra Stomper, like, you're just getting all these move cards going, and you're using Xorn to enable you to have extra moves. You could add Kraven to this list. I'm thinking instead of Jeff, if you'd rather do that, which I think is totally valid as well, but I wanted just to kind of go more into the Hydra Stomper aspect instead of maybe the Kraven aspect. That's why it's just moving pieces everywhere. We have Miles in there too. And then I have something a little bit crazy, okay? What would it be without a Black Knight deck? So, we are using Red Wing in this deck itself to potentially pull out some of our bigger combo pieces, whether that is a Giganto, an Infinite, or even potentially an Ebony Blade that's been produced from your Blade or your Lady Sif. You have Madam Web to be able to move the Red Wing. You also have Xorn to be able to move the Red Wing, Aranya to be able to move the Red Wing. You also can use that for some of your bigger cards if they are pulled out early. You can use them if they draw onto your Madam Web to be able to get value there. You also have, Ghost Rider to be able to bring back some of your resurrected cards. I wanted to do something just a little bit different here. So we'll see how this actually works in game opposed to in theory, because also the Ebony Blade, like, those blades are 4-cost cards that if you were to play them onto Xorn would count as moved cards. So there might be a world you can do some sneaky kind of stats thing here. Maybe you want to get a Miles in here just for extra value, but of course you have War Machine as an alternate for your Giganto and Infinite, so they're not just having a float a turn for Infinite or Giganto only be able to go in the leftmost lane. So those are kind of just some of the options I saw there. Also, Ghost Rider onto Xorn moves your Ghost Rider, so you're not necessarily clogged in that lane, and kind of gives you just some options there. You can make it so your Madam Web and Xorn are on the same lane, potentially, just to get some extra value there, which is very interesting to note. But those are going to be the decks we have here for Xorn. Moving along, these are my ratings for the card. I don't necessarily think this is the strongest card, at least at its current state. When I just look at the cards that are getting the most value from Xorn, the 3s and 4s, yes, Vulture getting the extra power is nice. And, yes, being able to get Red Wing value is cool. But, like, Hydra Stomper, there's better decks. Like, there's just some better cards I might have in there. Unless, like, some of these cards get changed, or there is, like, a very heavy influx of move, or a very even crazier influx of Surfer if you're just really trying to use this as a counter piece itself. I think right now just isn't the strongest, isn't the most flexible, even though it is a 2-drop. The ability just seems super narrow and super niche to me. But, like, I don't know if they adjust this. Do they adjust this before Elixir? Like, or are they waiting for Kid Omega to come out to adjust Elixir? Like, it's going to be very interesting to see just kind of what happens with the scope of the meta right now. Of course, we have the OTA on Thursday, and maybe that could offset this. I think what I would love, which I know this has happened before, but hear me out. What if Spider-Man 2099 became a 4-cost? Spider-Man 2099 was a 4-cost again. I know it wasn't the best even at a 4-cost, but now you have another enabler for that. You've already had Topaz too. You have Madam Web. Like, I wonder if that maybe could be some extra value. Maybe give this card a little bit more flair. I'm not thinking we're going to get like a 2099 Spider-Man meta, but it just would be just something interesting to note. So I do think this is going to be a bust for me. I don't think necessarily this is a card you're going to want at the moment unless there's changes that happened, warranted like a crazy OTA or something on Thursday, which is why I want to say, keeping that in mind, people are wrong about cards. I've been wrong about cards. Other people have been wrong about cards. Things just don't appear or happen the way we want them to happen. This is all theory crafting we have at the moment. There's the OTA on Thursday. The OTA on Thursday could change a bunch of things and maybe make this card more applicable and like actually get some extra value there. Maybe that's what's happening. They're releasing these cards that aren't really that great, that should be probably Series 4 because they're making some extra changes. That's just what we're hoping. So I would probably wait a couple days before getting this card if you are planning on getting this card, or just wait till you see like a crazy deck someone makes that you're like, I really want to play, because at the end of the day, the resources you spend are the way you want to play Snap. Like, spend the resources that are very limited on stuff you're going to use, not stuff that's just going to rot in your collection like Toxie Doxie. Granted, you didn't have to spend resources, you had to spend your time to get Toxie Doxie. But just, like, keep that in mind when it comes to these cards. Of course, there are seasonal snap packs, so maybe you're opening for this, but you get something better. You don't necessarily have to spend on the snap packs there. I think the snap packs are better there, but I still, like we were talking about on the app, snap packs really are okay right now. They're going to get good when they're archetype-specific snap packs. But if this is the way you want to play Snap and you want to get Xorn, go for it. I'm just not suggesting you get Xorn, at least currently with the way the meta is and the way he is looking right now. So just keep that in mind. But I do want to say thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys did stick around to the very end, let me know down below what is your favorite move card in the game. And also feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Until the next time, good luck if you guys are also in the tournament today at the time of this releasing, because we're doing this before the tournament. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. A safe Memorial Day if you guys are celebrating. And God bless, and Tucker out.